This video is going to show you how to add journal articles to your Mendeley library. So we're going to focus on articles found through the PsycArticles database, which is an EBSCO database, because this is currently the main database that you will use while studying at ICEP Europe. We'll look at 3 ways you can add an article to Mendeley. So hopefully you may find one method easier than the others, and you can use that method going forward. So before we start, just to point out that it's always good to have your Mendeley Reference Manager open. So as you're working on assignments or trying to find research for assignments, I would recommend having this Mendeley Reference Manager open in the background, just for ease of access, or if you add a reference, you can immediately check it and make sure that it's carried through correctly, things like that. So as you can see, this is my Mendeley library, and it's currently empty. So we're going to add some journal articles into this. So I'm going back to PsycArticles. You can see here, this is the ICEP Europe one, and I've already ran a search here on social psychology, so I've just kept it quite broad for now. And I'm going to scroll down, and you can see here, these are all peer-reviewed journal articles. So I'm going to find one that I think is relevant to my research. And I'm going to click on the title. And this first method, we'd say, of adding to Mendeley is by DOI. So that's the digital object identifier. And that's just a very specific number that relates to this article only. So if someone sees that number in a reference, they can copy and paste it, and they'll be brought exactly back to this article. And it's what we call a permalink or a stable URL. So if things change over time in terms of the article or where it's placed, the DOI should still work. Okay, so let's assume we've already read this article and we either think we're going to reference it, or maybe we want to just save it to our library to kind of revisit it in the future. So we're going to add it by DOI. So to get to DOI, you can either scroll down this page, so down at the normally towards the very bottom under details, you'll find the DOI. But another way of getting to it is just here above the title. We've got a few different options, and you can see the double quotation marks. So this is for cite. So we'll look at this later when we look at other methods. But this is basically generating our citation, which again is another method for doing your references. But for this video, we're looking at having Mendeley do them. But what we can do is we can take our DOI from the reference here. So you can see here, the reference list entry, and at the very end it has the DOI, and we know that's the DOI because it starts, every DOI will start with doi.org, and then this kind of long run of digits and letters. So I'm just going to copy just this part, Control C, and then we can close out of that, and I'm going to go back to my Mendeley Reference Manager. I'll close out that and start from scratch. So to add it by DOI, we're going to go to Add References. So big blue button at the top left of the screen. And you've got a few options here that we won't get into now, but around important files and folders and libraries. But what we're looking for is Add Reference Manually. So this option here. So even though it sounds like you're going to have to do a lot of manual work, you won't really, because what you're going to do is put your DOI into this top box, which is identifiers. And you can see it gives you a few of the options. So DOI is here, also ISBN, which is for books. But for now, we're going to look at DOIs. So we're going to just paste in our DOI, and then you click Look Up Metadata. So the magnifying glass to the right. And you can see there that's been successful. You can see it's put in the reference type, which is journal article. which is correct. So I would always say, and I'll repeat this in a lot of videos, but you have to double check some things at Mendeley, so there's no harm to make sure that that is the right source type. So if it's a website, if it was something else and you knew that, you can change that here yourself manually. But normally with journal articles, it is quite good. It knows what it's picking up. And then you can have a quick look down through it just to make sure. You can see the title has gone in, the authors are gone in. But again, if you spot anything you think is missing or should be in there, do feel free to put it in. And if you're happy enough, you just hit add entry and it adds it in here to my library. And for the purpose of this video, we're just putting everything into the all references folder. You do have options to create collections down here, which are basically folders, and create groups, but that's a different video. So for now, we're just going to put everything into this one all references folder. So that is one method. It's as simple as that. I'm going to click into a different article just to show you the other method, the second method. So I click into this next article the very same way, click on the title. And this time I'm going to add by PDF. So obviously the benefit of this is that you can add the actual PDF file into Mendeley and you will have it there to look back on or read over again. So this works obviously if you have the PDF of a document. Sometimes you may not actually have it on or be able to download it. Maybe you might have to read online. But you can see here we have the option here and we go to access options of PDF. So that'll tell me that we can download it. So you had a download option back there, or else you can click into it and download it from the PDF reader. So up at the top bar, the fifth one in, you can see download. So whatever way is easiest to do it. And we'll go for PDF format because that'll be the one that'll work best with Mendeley. You can see there that's gone up into my downloads in the top right. So if you want, you can move it from your downloads and keep everything into a kind of folder for later, which probably is a useful thing to do. But you don't necessarily have to do that. What you can do is go to recent download history up at the top, just to the right here, URL bar, and it'll be the last thing that's gone in there, and you can drag it and drop it. You can see then it's highlighted in yellow, the most recent thing that has gone in. And this time there's a file attached at the end. So the first one we added in didn't have the file, this now has the PDF. And we didn't get the option to edit any details, so if there is anything you need to change, and this goes for any sources you add to Mendeley, you can always double click on it. And this one will actually load the PDF. And then on the right hand side, you have all the information. So if you see any mistakes with the metadata, or you think there's something missing, maybe a URL or anything that you need to add in, you can add it in here. And that's a very important point at Mendeley. If you're working on a Word document and you see an issue with a reference that's been created by Mendeley, you always have to come back to this Mendeley library to make the changes, and then it'll automatically update back in your Word document. But we'll look at that in a separate video. So for now, it's gone in there. That's worked fine. And you have your PDF. If you want to X out of it then, just close that tab and go back to your library. So they're the first two methods. They're probably the two easiest ones, I would say. So depending on whether you want the PDF, you want to save it into Mendeley, or whether you don't have access to it. Also, I suppose PDFs will take up a bit of room in terms of the amount of space you have for free on Mendeley, so that might be something to bear in mind too. Maybe if you don't necessarily need the PDF, don't save it into Mendeley just for the sake of space. But you should get quite a bit of free kind of space on Mendeley before you have to pay. So just started the third method now. I'm just going to use a different one again so there's no overlap. So I'm just going to go down to this article. Once again, we're clicking into the title. And this time, similar to the first one, I'm going to go to the cite option here. So the double quotation marks just up to the right. And you can see we have our citation again, generating it for us. But what we want to do now is export citation. So we're exporting to Mendeley. And the way you do it for Mendeley, or similar for Zotero if you need to, is export in RIS format. So that's the third method we're using here. So RIS format is just the file that it will download in. So basically all we do is click export in RIS format. And it has gone up into my downloads. You can see Zotero is popping up there as well, but I don't think that's relevant. It's probably, we'll do it for the 2 if you needed to. So all we do is go back to Mendeley again. And similar to the PDF, I'm going to go into my downloads, my recent downloads, and I'm just going to drag and drop that RIS file. So you don't need to concern yourself too much about what an RIS file is. That's just the format that kind of works. And you can see, again, it's highlighting yellow, the most recent one. On first glance, it has our authors, our title, the source. But again, we can click on it and take a look. Everything looks all right, but you'll be able to look at that yourself to make sure it has the URL in as well. So that method does work quite well. We just always make sure as well that the source type up here at the very top, so where it says journal article, make sure that's correct in the first instance. That's probably the most important thing because that will affect the whole reference afterwards. So if you do need to change that, you can. So as you can see there, we have 3 journal articles added in, 3 different methods. So whichever one works best for you. If you have any other questions on this, feel free to contact the library at icepe.eu. Thank you.